The stars had been quiet for 300 years. Ambassador Velkith of the Solari Dominion stood before the tall windows of his office, watching the twin moons rise over the capital city. His pale blue skin reflected the soft light as he thought about the old stories. Stories that his people had tried to forget. Stories about the humans. He was just a child when the Exodus War ended. His father had served in the Coalition fleet. His father never spoke about what happened. He only said one thing once when Velketh asked about the humans. We did what we had to do. Never ask me again. Now, 3 centuries later, the humans were nothing but a warning in history books. They were described as violent, dangerous, and too ambitious. The Coalition had destroyed them to protect the galaxy. That was the official story. That was what everyone believed. Velketh's computer made a soft sound. A message was waiting for him. He walked to his desk and touched the screen. The message was from Deep Space Station Omega, located at the edge of the Dead Zone. The Dead Zone was the area of space where Earth used to exist. No one went there. No one was allowed to go there. The message contained sensor data. Velketh studied it carefully. His eyes grew wide. His hands began to shake. Something was moving in the Dead Zone. Something massive. Within hours, the High Council of the Galactic Coalition gathered in the Great Chamber on the capital world. 12 species had formed this alliance long ago. They controlled thousands of star systems. They believed they were the masters of the galaxy. High Chancellor Mordrith sat on the central throne. He was a Vexari, tall and thin, with dark red scales covering his body. His yellow eyes looked at the gathered ambassadors with cold authority. He had ruled the Coalition for 60 years. He did not like surprises. "This is impossible," said Admiral Vex of the Kronothi military. He was a large creature with 4 arms and gray armor-like skin. "Our sensors must be broken. There is nothing in the Dead Zone. There has been nothing there for 300 years. The sensors are working correctly," Velketh said quietly. "I have checked the data myself. There is a vessel moving through the Dead Zone. It is larger than anything we have ever seen." "How large?" asked Mordrith. Velketh took a deep breath. "Based on the readings, the vessel is approximately 800 kilometers long." Silence filled the chamber. 800 kilometers. The largest Coalition warship was only 12 kilometers long. This thing was beyond imagination. "That cannot be right," said Minister Yura of the Myrith Collective. She was a small creature covered in soft white fur, but her voice was sharp. "No species can build something that size. It must be a natural object. An asteroid, perhaps." "It is not an asteroid," Velketh replied. "It is accelerating. It is changing course. It is heading toward Coalition space." Fear began to spread through the chamber. The ambassadors looked at each other with worried eyes. Mordrith raised his hand for silence. "We do not know what this object is," he said firmly. "We will send scout ships to investigate. Until then, there is no reason for panic. This meeting is finished." The ambassadors left the chamber, but Velketh stayed behind. He approached the High Chancellor carefully. "Chancellor," he said, "there is something else. Something I did not share with the full council." "Ah." Mordrith looked at him with suspicion. "Speak." "The vessel is broadcasting a signal. A repeating message. I had my team translate it." Velketh handed him a small data device. "It is in an old human language." Mordrith's face changed. For just a moment, Velketh saw something he had never seen before in the Chancellor's eyes. Fear. True fear. "What does it say?" Mordrith whispered. "It says, 'We remember what you did. We are coming home.'" Mordrith crushed the data device in his hand. His whole body was shaking. "This information does not leave this room. Do you understand? Tell no one." "But Chancellor, if the humans survived, "The humans are dead," Mordrith shouted. "We made sure of that. We burned their world. We hunted their ships. We killed every last one of them. They are dead." Velkith stepped back. He had never seen Mordrith like this. The most powerful being in the galaxy was afraid. "Perhaps," Velkith said slowly, "we did not kill all of them." That night, Velkith returned to his office. He could not sleep. He sat in the darkness and thought about his father's words. "We did what we had to do." What did they do? What really happened 300 years ago? He accessed the old archives. Most of the files from the Exodus War were classified or deleted. But Velkith had high security clearance. He searched for hours, reading through old reports and communications. What he found made his blood turn cold. The humans had not started the war. They had simply been growing too fast, advancing too quickly. The elder races feared them. They feared what humanity might become. So the coalition decided to act first. They attacked Earth without warning. They destroyed human colonies across the galaxy. They hunted civilian ships carrying families, children, innocent people. It was not a war. It was a massacre. And now something was coming out of the darkness. Something that remembered everything. Velkith looked out his window at the peaceful city below. People walked through the streets, living their normal lives. They had no idea that their world was built on a lie. They had no idea what was coming. Somewhere in the void between stars, the massive vessel continued its journey. On its bridge, human officers worked in quiet focus. They had waited 300 years for this moment. They had prepared for 300 years. The galaxy had forgotten about humanity. Humanity had not forgotten about them. 300 years ago, the sky above Earth turned red with fire. Captain James Chun stood on the bridge of the colony ship Wanderer as the planet burned below. He was 32 years old. His wife stood beside him, holding their infant daughter. Behind them, 10,000 refugees filled the ship, crying, praying, screaming. The coalition fleet filled the space around Earth like a swarm of angry insects. Thousands of warships fired their weapons without mercy. Cities that had stood for centuries vanished in seconds. Oceans boiled. Mountains crumbled. 8 billion people died in a single day. But James Chun did not watch the destruction. He was looking at his navigation screen, counting down the seconds until their jump drive was ready. 47 colony ships had escaped Earth before the attack began. They had received a warning just hours before. No one knew who sent it. "Jump drive ready," said his navigator. "All ships," James said into his communicator. "Jump now. Jump to the void coordinates. Do not look back." The Wanderer and 46 other ships vanished into faster-than-light travel. They left behind everything they knew. They flew toward the empty space between galaxies, where no one would follow, where no one would find them. They flew toward survival. The first 50 years were the hardest. The ships traveled through complete darkness. There were no stars, no planets, nothing but endless empty space. Many people lost hope. Some took their own lives. Others went mad from the loneliness, but humanity held on. They held on because they had to. They held on because of their children. The ships found each other again after 70 years. They had spread out during the long journey, but now they came together in a region of space that had never been touched by any living thing. There, floating in the eternal darkness, they began to build. They connected their ships together, forming a massive structure. They mined asteroids for materials. They created farms and factories and schools. They built a new civilization from nothing, and they never forgot what the coalition had done. Every child learned the true history. Every child saw the recordings of Earth's destruction. Every child knew that somewhere, far away, The creatures who killed their ancestors still lived in comfort and peace. Generations passed. The small collection of ships grew into something incredible. Engineers pushed the limits of science. Scientists discovered new forms of energy. Doctors found ways to extend human life. The desperate survivors became something more than human. After 200 years, construction began on humanity's greatest project, the Prometheus Ascendant. It would be a ship like no other. 800 kilometers long, large enough to carry millions of people. It would be a moving planet, a mobile fortress, a symbol of everything humanity had become. It would take 100 years to build, and when it was finished, humanity would return. Admiral Yuki Tanaka was born on the Prometheus Ascendant during its construction. She never knew any other home. She grew up in metal corridors, studying old Earth videos, dreaming of blue skies she had never seen. Her grandmother had survived the Exodus. She had been 10 years old when Earth died. She told Yuki stories about grass and rain and sunshine. She told her about ice cream and beaches and birthday parties. She told her about a world full of life and color, destroyed in a single day by creatures who thought humans were too dangerous to exist. "We will go back," her grandmother said before she died. "Promise me, Yuki. Promise me we will go back." "I promise," Yuki said. Now, 40 years later, Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the completed Prometheus Ascendant. She was 63 years old, but she looked 40 thanks to advanced medicine. Her black hair was cut short, and her dark eyes were calm and steady. 12 million humans lived on this ship. They all trusted her to lead them home. "Admiral," said Commander Okonkwo, her second in command, "we have entered Coalition sensor range. They have detected us." "Good," Yuki said. "Begin broadcasting the signal. Let them know we are coming." On the main screen, she could see distant stars. Those stars had been nothing but points of light for 300 years. Now they were getting closer. One of those stars was Sol, Earth's sun. One of those stars was home. "Admiral, Coalition scout ships are approaching. 6 vessels. Do not engage unless they fire first. Let them see us. Let them understand what they are facing." The scout ships were fast and small. They flew toward the Prometheus Ascendant like curious animals approaching a sleeping giant. Their captains sent confused reports back to Coalition Command. This ship was impossible. Nothing this large could exist. The scouts got closer. Too close. They entered the Ascendant's defense zone. "Activate absorption field," Yuki ordered. The space around the Prometheus Ascendant seemed to bend and twist. A sphere of absolute darkness surrounded the great ship. The scout vessels flew into it and simply disappeared. They were not destroyed. They were caught, pulled gently into the ship's hangar bays, their crews suddenly finding themselves as prisoners. The last scout managed to send one final transmission before it too was absorbed. It was a picture, the Prometheus Ascendant filling the entire frame, blotting out the stars, darker than the void itself. In the Coalition capital, High Chancellor Mordreth stared at that image. His advisors talked nervously around him, suggesting plans and theories and explanations. But Mordreth said nothing. He just stared at the picture of the impossible ship. The humans had returned, and they had brought something the Coalition could not fight on the Prometheus Ascendant. Admiral Tanaka looked at a holographic map of Coalition space. Thousands of star systems, trillions of beings, all of them living on worlds that should have belonged to humanity's children. "Begin Phase 1, she said softly. "Let them see us. Let them remember. And let them be afraid." The great ship moved forward, carrying humanity's hope and humanity's memory into the heart of enemy space. The Prometheus Ascendant emerged from the darkness like a moon made of metal and fire. Coalition news networks broadcast images of the ship across every inhabited world. No one could look away. No one could believe what they were seeing. High Chancellor Mordreth stood in the war room beneath the Coalition Capitol building. Around him, military leaders from all 12 species argued and shouted. They were afraid. He could smell their fear. "We must attack immediately," said Admiral Vex of the Karnathi military, "before they reach the inner systems. We have 4,000 warships ready. The Grand Armada can destroy anything." 4,000 ships against that? Asked Minister Rira of the Myrith Collective. She pointed at the screen showing the Prometheus Ascendant. "Look at the size of it. We do not even know what weapons it carries." "It does not matter," Vex replied. "No ship can survive the combined firepower of the Grand Armada. Mathematics does not lie. We will overwhelm them." Mordreth raised his hand. Everyone fell silent. "Gather the Armada. All ships from all species. We will meet this vessel at the Hollow Point system, at the edge of Coalition core space. We will show these humans that they made a mistake coming back." The orders went out. Within days, the largest fleet in galactic history assembled at Hollow Point. 4,000 warships from 12 different species formed a wall of metal energy. Battleships the size of cities. Destroyers carrying planet-killing weapons. Fighter carriers loaded with millions of small attack craft. The combined crews numbered over 50 million beings. They had come to defend their civilization. They believed they could not lose. Admiral Tanaka watched them gather through long-range sensors. She sat in her command chair on the Prometheus Ascendant's bridge, drinking green tea from a simple ceramic cup. Her officers worked quietly at their stations, showing no fear. "Admiral, the Coalition fleet has taken position. 4,200 ships. They are powering weapons. Open a communication channel. All frequencies. I want everyone in the galaxy to hear this." Her image appeared on screens across Coalition space. On warships, in government buildings, in homes and schools and workplaces. Trillions of beings saw the human admiral for the first time. She looked calm. Peaceful, even. Not like the monster they had been taught to fear. "I am Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the Human Remnant. I speak to the Galactic Coalition and all its citizens. 300 years ago, you tried to destroy us. You burned our world. You killed our families. You erased us from history and told your children we were monsters." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We survived. We rebuilt. And now we have returned. But we have not come for revenge. We have come for justice. We demand acknowledgement of the genocide committed against humanity. We demand reparations for the 8 billion lives you took. And we demand a seat at the galactic table as equals." In the war room, Mordreth slammed his fist against the console. "She demands nothing. She's in no position to make demands." "These terms are fair and reasonable," Tanaka continued. "Accept them, and we can begin a new era of peace. Refuse them, and we will be forced to demonstrate why you should have made sure we were actually dead." The transmission ended. Mordreth grabbed his communicator. "Admiral X, destroy that ship, now." The Grand Armada moved forward. 4,000 ships fired their weapons at once. The space around the Prometheus Ascendant filled with missiles, energy beams, and nuclear warheads. It was enough firepower to crack a planet in half. On the Ascendant's bridge, officers reported the incoming attack. Tanaka took another sip of her tea. "Activate dimensional shielding." The great ship seemed to shimmer, like a heat wave rising from hot ground. Then the attacks reached it, and something impossible happened. The weapons passed through the ship. Missiles flew through it and exploded on the other side. Energy beams went in one end and came out the other. The Prometheus Ascendant was not damaged because the attacks never actually hit it. The ship existed slightly outside normal space, untouchable by conventional weapons. Silence fell over the Coalition fleet. Commanders stared at their screens in confusion. That was everything they had. That was every weapon available. And it had done nothing. Then the Prometheus Ascendant opened its hangar bays. Thousands of small craft poured out of the great ship. They were human fighters, but they did not fly like normal ships. They moved in perfect formation, turning and diving and attacking as if controlled by a single mind. Because they were controlled by a single mind. Humanity had developed limited hive mind technology. Their pilots were connected, thinking as one. The swarm hit the Coalition fleet like a wave crashing against rocks. But the human fighters did not aim to kill. They targeted engines, weapon systems, communication arrays. They disabled ships with surgical precision. Coalition vessels went dark one after another. Their crews left alive but helpless. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, the Grand Armada drifted in space, powerless. 4,000 ships. 50 million crew members. All alive. All captured. Admiral Tanaka opened another channel. This time, she spoke directly to Mordrath. High Chancellor, we could have killed every one of them. Every ship. Every crew member. We chose not to. That is the difference between us. 300 years ago, you showed us no mercy. Today, we showed you mercy you did not deserve. Mordrath stared at the image of the disabled fleet. His entire military, defeated in minutes without a single death. The humans were not just powerful. They were beyond anything the Coalition could fight. You have one cycle to reconsider our terms, Tanaka said. Accept them. Admit what you did. Or we will continue to demonstrate why humanity should have been respected instead of feared. The transmission ended. Mordrath stood alone in the war room, surrounded by silence. The screen showed the Prometheus Ascendant, still and patient, waiting for his answer. He had one day to decide the fate of the Coalition. One day to face the truth he had spent 300 years trying to bury. The humans had returned, and they were better than the Coalition could ever be. Ambassador Velkith walked through the airlock onto the neutral station. His hearts were beating fast. He had never done anything like this before. If Mordrath discovered what he was doing, he would be executed for treason. But he had to know the truth. He had to speak to the humans. The station was old and small, floating in unclaimed space between Coalition systems. It was used for secret meetings, illegal trades, and conversations that could never be recorded. Today, it would be used for something that might change history. A human was waiting for him in the main chamber. Commander David Okonkwo was tall and dark-skinned, with gray hair at his temples and kind eyes that seemed to hold deep sadness. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations. He stood as Velkith entered and extended his hand. Ambassador, thank you for coming. Velkith looked at the hand, unsure what to do. Then he remembered reading about human customs. He took the hand and shook it. The human's grip was warm and firm. I needed to understand, Velkith said. The history we learned, the stories we were told. Were they all lies? Okonkwo gestured to a chair. They both sat down. The human was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. Tell me what you were taught about the Exodus War. Velkith repeated the official history. Humans were aggressive. They attacked Coalition colonies. They refused to negotiate. The Coalition had no choice but to defend itself. The destruction of Earth was tragic but necessary. Okonkwo listened without expression. When Velkith finished, the human reached into his pocket and placed a small device on the table. This is a data crystal. It contains recordings from the day Earth died. Security footage. Communication logs. Ship sensors. Everything the survivors could gather before they fled. He activated the device. A holographic image appeared above the table. Velkith saw Earth. He had seen pictures before, but never like this. A blue and green world, covered with lights on the night side, showing billions of lives, beautiful, peaceful. Then the coalition fleet appeared. Thousands of ships surrounding the planet without warning. There was no battle. There was no fight. The ships simply opened fire on everything. The recording showed cities being destroyed. Ships trying to flee being shot down. Communication channels filled with screaming, begging, praying. Children crying for their parents. Parents crying for their children. Velkith watched a recording from a hospital ship. It was carrying wounded people and pregnant mothers. A coalition destroyer blew it apart without hesitation. He watched a school being hit by an orbital strike. He watched a family running through a burning street before they were consumed by fire. He watched 8 billion people die. "Stop," he whispered. "Please stop." Okonkwo turned off the device. Velkith was shaking. Tears ran down his blue face. "My grandmother was on a refugee ship," Okonkwo said quietly. "She was 8 years old. She watched her parents burn when their shuttle was hit. She spent 70 years in the void, in darkness, before she saw another star. She died still dreaming of Earth." "I did not know," Velkith said. "My people did not know. They told us you were monsters. We were not monsters. We were just growing too fast. Your leaders were afraid of what we might become, so they decided to kill us all." Okonkwo leaned forward. 300 years, Ambassador. 300 years in the dark. Children born who never saw sunlight. People who went mad from loneliness. We lost so much. Not just our world. We lost our future. We lost who we could have been. Velkith wiped his eyes. "What do you want from us?" "What we asked for. Acknowledgement, reparations, a seat at the table. We do not want to destroy the coalition. We want to change it. We want to make sure this never happens again to anyone. Mordrith will never agree. He built his power on the lie of the Exodus War. If the truth comes out, he falls. Then help us bring the truth out." Velkith was silent for a long moment. He thought about his father, who never spoke about the war. He thought about the peaceful cities on his homeworld, built on the bones of dead humans. He thought about who he wanted to be. "I will speak to others," he finally said. "The Solari, the Myrith, the Thornaki. There are many who have wondered about the truth. If we show them these recordings, they may listen." Okonkwo nodded. "That is all we ask." They talked for several more hours. By the time Velkith left the station, he had made his decision. He would not support the lie anymore. The next days were busy. Velkith met secretly with ambassadors from other species. He showed them the recordings. He watched their faces change from doubt to horror to shame. One by one, they agreed that things had to change. When Mordrith called for a vote to continue the war, 3 species refused. The Solari, the Myrith, and the Thornaki formally withdrew from the Coalition alliance. Without their ships and resources, Mordrith's military strength was cut in half. The High Chancellor was furious. He stood in the empty council chamber after the vote, surrounded only by his loyal followers. "Traitors," he hissed. "Cowards. They will regret this." "Chancellor," said Admiral Lex, who remained loyal, "we still have enough force to fight. But conventional weapons do not work against their ship." "I know." Mordrith walked to his throne and sat down heavily. "That is why we will use something else. Something we swore never to use again." "You cannot mean the God Killer." "Prepare it." Dex's face turned pale. The God Killer was an ancient weapon from a war fought long before the Coalition existed. It could destroy stars. It could end solar systems. It had been locked away for 10,000 years. too dangerous for anyone to use. Chancellor, the God Killer will not just destroy the human ship. It will destroy everything in its path. Billions could die. Then billions will die. Mordred's eyes were cold. The humans cannot be allowed to win. They cannot be allowed to expose what we did. I will burn the galaxy before I let that happen. Deep in a secret facility beneath the Coalition capital, ancient machines began to wake. The God Killer was being prepared. Somewhere in space, human intelligence operatives received the news. They had been hidden in Coalition society for decades, waiting, watching. Now they sent a single message to the Prometheus Ascendant. Admiral Tanaka read the report. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands tightened on her chair. He's going to use the God Killer. Commander Okonkwo stood beside her. We knew he might do something desperate. Yes, she took a deep breath. Launch the Avalon Protocol. It is time to end this. Across Coalition space, hidden operatives began to move. The final phase had begun. The God Killer rose from the surface of the Coalition capital world like a metal mountain climbing into the sky. It was 5 kilometers long, covered in ancient symbols from a war no one remembered. Energy crackled around its surface as systems that had slept for 10,000 years came back to life. High Chancellor Mordred stood in the command center, watching the weapon power up. His loyal followers stood around him, none of them willing to speak. They all knew what was about to happen. They all knew the cost. Status report, Mordred demanded. God Killer at 60% power, said the weapons officer. Full charge in 30 minutes. Target lock on the human vessel confirmed. Good, Mordred smiled. When this is over, no one will remember the humans ever existed. We will write history again. At that moment, every screen in Coalition space went dark. Then they lit up again with something new. Something that had been hidden for 300 years. The Avalon Protocol was not a weapon. It was the truth. Human operatives had seized control of every broadcast network in Coalition space. Now, they transmitted the recordings that Commander Okonkwo had shown Velkith. The real history of the Exodus War played on every screen, in every home, in every school, in every government building. Trillions of beings watched their leaders commit genocide. They watched innocent humans being slaughtered. They watched children burn and families die. They heard the screams and the prayers and the final goodbyes of 8 billion people. And then they heard the lies that followed. The recordings of Coalition leaders deciding what story to tell. The meetings where they agreed to call humans monsters. The documents ordering all evidence destroyed. The Coalition citizens had been lied to for 300 years. Now they knew the truth. Riots began within minutes. On dozens of worlds, people flooded the streets demanding answers. Government buildings were surrounded. Military officers refused to follow orders. The Coalition was tearing itself apart from the inside. In the command center, Mordred watched the chaos with growing horror. His communicator was full of reports. Rebellions on 15 worlds. Fleet commanders abandoning their posts. His own guards looking at him with new eyes. God Killer at 90%, said the weapons officer. His voice was shaking. Fire it. Mordred screamed. Fire it now. Chancellor, the weapon is not fully charged. If we fire now, I do not care. Destroy them. The God Killer fired. A beam of pure white energy shot from the weapon toward the Prometheus Ascendant. It was the most powerful weapon ever created, capable of tearing stars apart. Nothing could survive it. The beam reached the human ship and passed through empty space. The Prometheus Ascendant had vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Where are they? Mordred shouted. Find them. Alarms filled the command center. Sensors screamed warnings. The Prometheus Ascendant had reappeared directly above the God Killer platform. So close that the ancient weapon filled the sky. Humanity had mastered dimensional travel decades ago. They could move their ship through space in ways the Coalition could not understand. They had let the God-Killer fire at nothing. All weapons, target that ship. Mordrith ordered. Sir, our weapons cannot hurt them. We saw what happened at Hollow Point. Then ram them. Do something. But there was nothing to do. The Prometheus Ascendant hung in the sky like a judgment from the gods. Its hangar bays opened, and shuttles descended toward the God-Killer platform. Human soldiers in advanced armor landed on the weapon. The boarding action was broadcast live to the entire galaxy. Humans moved through the God-Killer, disabling its systems with calm efficiency. They did not kill the Coalition soldiers they found. They restrained them gently and moved on. In less than an hour, the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy was shut down. Admiral Tanaka's voice came over every speaker. The God-Killer is now disabled. It will be dismantled and destroyed. Weapons like this have no place in a civilized galaxy. On the Coalition capital, the military surrounded the government building. But they were not there to protect Mordrith. They were there to arrest him. General Vex of the Carnothy military walked into the command center. He had served Mordrith for 40 years. Now he looked at the High Chancellor with disgust. Mordrith of the Vexery, you are under arrest for crimes against sentient life. For genocide. For 300 years of lies and murder. You will face trial before all the species of the galaxy. Mordrith tried to run. He did not get far out in the days that followed. The Coalition collapsed. Not into chaos, but into something new. Representatives from all 12 species met with human diplomats. Ambassador Velkith led the negotiations for the Solari. Commander Okonkwo spoke for humanity. The discussions were long and difficult. There was so much pain on both sides. So much history to overcome. But slowly, carefully, they built something new. They called it the Galactic Concord. A new alliance based on truth and equality. Humanity was given a founding seat. Reparations were agreed upon, not in money or resources, but in action. Coalition engineers would help rebuild Earth. Coalition scientists would share their knowledge. Coalition citizens would learn the true history and teach it to their children. 1 month later, Admiral Yuki Tanaka walked on the surface of Earth for the first time. The planet was scarred. 300 years had healed some wounds, but others remained. Where cities had stood, there were now forests. Where billions had lived, there was silence, but the air was clean. The water was pure. Life had returned to the wounded world. Tanaka knelt and touched the ground. She felt the soil between her fingers. She smelled the grass and the flowers. She listened to birds singing in trees that had grown from the ashes. Ambassador Velkith stood beside her. He had asked to be present for this moment. He felt he owed it to the humans and to himself. What will you do now? He asked. Tanaka stood and looked at the horizon. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors she had only seen in old recordings. It was more beautiful than she had ever imagined. We will rebuild, she said. We will plant new cities where the old ones fell. We will raise new generations on a living world. We will remember everything that happened, the good and the bad. And we will make sure this never happens again. To anyone, that is a great task. Yes, she smiled, and for the first time since leaving the void, she looked truly at peace. But that is what humans do. We build. We hope. We dream. And we never, ever give up. On the Prometheus Ascendant, now orbiting Earth, millions of humans watched the sunset through the ship's external cameras. Many were crying. Many were laughing. After 300 years of darkness, they had finally come home. The galaxy had tried to destroy them. It had failed. Humanity had returned, not as conquerors, but as builders. Not as monsters, but as healers. They had shown the galaxy that there was another way, a better way, and the galaxy, at last, was listening.